All right, everyone. How's it going? Derek from Make Media Studios. Today, I have a special guest with me. I got Austen Paul, someone that I follow on YouTube with his commercial videography and tutorials he's showing. He's a filmmaker, a producer, and many different titles. How's it going, Austin?
It's going great, man. Thank you for having me on. I'm really excited. So, yeah,
Awesome.
sorry if there is a little bit of noise in the background. My she's cooking, so she's meal prepping right now.
Oh, we have meal prep tomorrow, me and my wife. So I know the
Perfect.
pain.
Yeah. It's the
I'm
only way
usually
to stay healthy.
I'm usually only doing the dishes. That's my problem. The whole time we're cooking, I'm just pretty much doing dishes nonstop. Don't have a dishwasher yet, so.
See, we have this unspoken agreement that, I mean, I love cooking, but I won't, because I'm so busy all the time, like, I won't eat unless she puts food in front of me, because I'll be just working away.
Right.
And as you could see, like, even trying to get a hold of me, it's not like I'm trying to be like, blow you off or anything like that. I'm literally probably putting out fires, not like fires, but
Right.
it's kind of like I'm on a boat right now, and there's a lot of holes of water just sinking in, and I'm trying to plug them all right just to keep the boat afloat. But so yeah, if she doesn't put food in front of me, I won't eat it. And then we have an agreement, like, I do the dishes.
Right.
And so, especially when we do dinner, I'll do the dishes in the morning while my coffee's brewing. So that's how I do it. That's what gets me out of bed is coffee.
Yeah, me too. So. Me too. Do you have a pretty well, let's start with that. What's your work ethic like? I mean, you starting at like 6 a.m. or what are you doing?
I used to do it like that, and it would burn me out pretty fast. I wake up at 6:30.
Yeah.
Every morning. I don't even put a alarm clock anymore. I just shoot up at that time. My mind starts running really fast.
Right.
And we'll get up, and then I'll check all my emails. That's the first thing always, is just checking emails, seeing if anybody is interested, responding to people, because I try my best to still respond to people, as my obviously my account's not huge comparatively to a lot of people on YouTube, but I still try my best to respond to everybody, but it does get pretty crazy. Like, every morning I'll wake up with, like 30, 40 new messages in my Instagram, and then comments on videos and stuff. And for the most part, I try my best to respond to everybody.
Well, thank you. Because you responded to me. So thank you. You
exactly.
did a great job.
And then as my girlfriend's doing yoga, I'll make my coffee, and I'll just kind of sip that and do all my emails. And then we go straight to the gym. That's what we try to do every morning. And then once we come back, it's usually is not as glamorous as what everybody thinks, but most of the time I'm just in my office editing or dealing with client feedback and doing re-edits for them or whatsoever. I mean, we just got back, because I was talking to you, we just got back from driving. Yesterday we did 14 hours from Washington all the way back down here.
Oh, wow.
And so I was editing the car as much as I could.
Yep, I've done that.
So we were shooting a car commercial that I'm collaborating on with another filmmaker named Joey Palmerus, and he's out in Finland. So we're working on a car commercial together, and that should be coming out shortly, soon, hopefully. We'll see, how things go sometimes. But we have our projected dates, but I don't want to talk too much about it. But
I get you.
But yeah, so I mean, most of my schedule is literally just on the computer from once I get back around. Probably once everything is said and done, I'm like settled in by like 9, 10, and then just editing until I can't. My eyes are bleeding, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah.
How long you been filmmaking? I mean, where did you start? When did you start with everything?
So officially and unofficially, I have two different answers.
Okay.
Ever since I was young, I would not all the time. Obviously, it wasn't like, oh, Austin, like, all he had was a camera in his hand, even when he was a baby, came out of the womb with a camera. That's not how it was. But I really liked films when I was little. I loved going to movie theaters and feeling like you could be like transported to a different world. And that captured my my attention a lot. And so I would borrow my parents' Handycam, and I'd make films with my cousins and make films with my friends or whoever. Not really able to edit them, because back then it was you had to have a special cord that didn't come with the camera, which I think was called like a fire cable.
Yes, the fire cable. I had the Canon. I don't know what it was, but this little Canon camera, and you used to record in it you'd start recording and then you'd stop recording just for that scene. You had to do it just right, and then you just record again onto the next scene. So
yeah. And so I didn't know that for the longest time, trying to plug the cables that were coming in. I was using my parents' computer back then and using Windows Movie Maker or whatever.
Yep.
And I remember my dad helped me, and he convinced the people down at the Civil War reenactment that I was filming a documentary, and they let me like go around, and I was like filming this whole thing. They even let me like stage. I couldn't be out on the field when they're doing the battles,
right?
But like stage it, the camera, like put it in a hidden spot, so with the explosions going off and stuff like that. I never edited it. It got a little too
much.
Too much for me. I think I was 9 years old, like trying to put together a documentary.
Right.
But I made short films. You know, everybody makes their horror films. Probably one of the first go-tos most people do when they're young.
Yep.
And then I did it a little bit in high school as well, and that's kind of where I started learning Final Cut.
Okay.
And then I was told, and it was all just for fun, you know, it wasn't like I was serious about it. It wasn't learning anything. It wasn't the whole DSLR revolution yet, because I'm 28 now, so we were still using, I don't even know what we were using in high school. It was some kind of just bigger camcorder.
Right.
And so
in high school, I was using iMovie on Macs.
We were using Final Cut.
That's cool.
Studio, which is cool. Which is funny because then when I went to college, I did like one class because I was like, I still really want to do film, but I was told that there's no way that I'm going to make money in film. And so I kind of gave up on that whole thing. My counselors told me, like, don't do that at all. You have to know people. And I was like, all right. And so that, I mean, I'd say my unofficial start is probably when I was like 7 years old.
Right.
But when I graduated from college, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life really. And I got into like this really deep depression because I didn't really see myself fitting in what society's standards are for a job. And I was like, I just don't think I really fit into the world, you know, and I didn't really have any passion at that point for anything.
9 to 5 office life just didn't, it just doesn't feel right.
And it wasn't that I wasn't a hard worker. I just didn't want to sit in the office and do that.
Yeah.
I could see myself, I was like trying to picture myself, I'm like, can I do this for a week?
Right.
Yeah. Can I do this for like 4 weeks? Yeah. I'm like 2 months, and I just could never see myself doing it. And yeah, like I said, it wasn't because I was lazy. I just couldn't bring myself to do it. And my brother, he showed me some videos of this guy, Sam Colder, obviously.
Yeah.
Back when he first started, and he's like, this is pretty cool. You should do this. And I was like, all right. And I decided to do one in my hometown, and my brother let me borrow his camera. Mm-hmm. He had a really nice camera at the time. He had an A7R II. Okay. And I had no clue anything about cameras or anything, you know, like my very limited experience in high school and stuff like that. I wouldn't even count. And that was about 3.5 years ago. Okay. He gave me his camera. I didn't know what ISO, aperture, any of that stuff was. And I put it on SCN mode because it looked good in the picture. And I started filming every single day. I'd wake up super early in the morning, get some sunrise shots, get some sunset shots. He also let me borrow his drone. So I don't know why he just liked all this stuff, but he's a firefighter, so he didn't do the creative path or anything like that. But he let me borrow his gear. Yeah, he had all the stuff. So I was like, okay. And I put that film together. Very Sam Colder inspired. But I knew from being from Santa Cruz, people are, and I'm sure you know this because you're pretty close to Santa Cruz, people from Santa Cruz are really like prideful of Santa Cruz, you know?
Mm-hmm. So it got spread a little bit when they saw it.
Yeah. When I posted it, it like blew up for at least, I took it down recently because it definitely copyright claims, and I was younger, so like I used Jai Wolf summer song, and I was like, okay, now that like my YouTube, I had it up literally until like maybe 2 months ago, but I was like, all right, now that my YouTube's kind of growing, and I've never had a copyright claim against it, you know, I was like, I'm not going to kind of push this now that I'm like I can monetize my YouTube and stuff. I'm not, so I just put it on private, and so that people can't see it. But yeah, it was Jai Wolf Summer. What is the song called? Doesn't
Summertime.
matter, but
I know. I think I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah, and so that blew up on Facebook, and that's before Facebook had like their algorithm for not allowing things to go out of YouTube. I mean, go out to YouTube, where you only get like 20% views on anything that you link to YouTube or whatever. And so I, at that point, I was like, all right, I made it. I'm like so stoked.
Yeah.
Knowing nothing about filmmaking really whatsoever. And just having like my friends run around in a video and showing different beautiful places and getting like sunrise, sunset. And I had all these people reaching out. They're like, oh, we'd love to work with you, blah, blah, blah. Like people from Santa Cruz, which never came to fruition whatsoever.
Right.
And a few months down the road, I was like, shit, well, like I've not made $1 at this.
What's next? Yeah.
Yeah. And so like I just would take Craigslist ads. That's,
Okay.
The safe thing to do. Just finding different Craigslist ads.
Well, I've looked at them. I've actually never picked one up, but I have looked when it's those like times when things are really slow and I'm really trying to look for something, just to kind of like keep myself going. I've looked. I've never picked up a Craigslist ad though. Is that how you kind of started?
Yeah, yes, no. I mean, it's such a blur now because I've worked nonstop since that day that I started filmmaking, and like I'm even trying to remember. I wouldn't even.
Right.
That might be my first video that I did. I was trying to remember because I know a lot of people were like posting their first videos and like, oh, let's critique our first.
Like
videos.
a reaction, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm trying to even remember. I was like, it wasn't technically my first video because I've ran around the GoPro and made videos and stuff.
Right, I did stuff in high school. Same thing here. Like I did this
yeah.
high school videos, which was our friends eating at a McDonald's, and it was just like us filming it with the school equipment.
Yeah, so like I mean, like I really don't know. I couldn't give you like a definite answer where I started, but yeah, I did a few Craigslist ads. I got to be a teacher at a camp for art students, which was cool. I got to be our camp counselor, and I got to teach kids filmmaking. But they're more into theater, so like there's only one kid that would really take the class, and I think it just because he wanted to hang out with me because he didn't fit in anywhere else, and I was like, whatever, we're gonna take this opportunity. So literally, there's about like 12 films because they have like this show and tell at the end, and there's 12 films, and this kid is literally in every single film, and it's just me and him just filming. Him, and the other director just filming stuff, and I was like, all right, well, whatever. It was cool, like cool experience to.
Was that like the Santa Cruz?
People.
Is that like the Santa Cruz Hills? Was that one of the camps up there?
Yeah. So it was kind of up in Boulder Creek, but they do it all over. I don't know if they do it there anymore, but it's called U camps.
Okay.
And it's I don't know what that stands for, to be honest. They like all these kids that were counselors. Most of them were in the camp beforehand.
Right.
And so I was like kind of
the only one.
That wasn't like part of that whole, thing. And I kind of just popped in because I saw the ad and I was like, oh, I get paid $300 for a week. I'm like, hell yeah. Let's do this. To do filmmaking.
Sign me up.
Yeah. I remember like I was stoked when I made my first money, like on a job. I think it was $150. Yeah. And I was so stoked. I mean, I was super lucky because a lot of people ask me all the time. They're like, how do you become a full-time filmmaker?
Right.
Like I don't know if I'm going to make enough money to make that jump. And see, I did it. I mean, it was a year out of college, but I was very fortunate. My parents let me pretty much just bum off them at that point, and just let me go for it because they're like, they saw it. They're like, well, if you're going to do something, this is your time to try it. And it was about a year and a half until I actually made like my first dollar on a film. Okay. Once I made that Santa Cruz video, it was like a year and a half in. Right. So pretty much a year and a half ago, that seems really close. Maybe 2 years ago.
2 years
since
ago?
I actually like started making money at filmmaking. And I mean, it took that much time, and that was 100% dedication. So
absolutely.
I know a lot of people, I mean, I know everybody's circumstances are different, and some people, they can't just go, they have a family, they can't go 100% in, and they're asking me, I'm like, well, I mean, you can start taking jobs as much as you can on your free time, but like, I feel like I'm probably not the best person to give that advice because I was able to be broke and just do it and do only that, not turn back. I mean, there's about maybe 1,000 times that I wanted to quit doing filmmaking because I was like, this is not going to work. But like I said, I had no other option going back. Right. Like I always was tempted, and I'd always be looking at like full-time jobs and stuff like that. Right. On Craigslist, but I had interviews, but I just never pulled the trigger on any of them. For some reason, I just kept going this direction, even though it was like the thought in the back of my head was to tell me like, just do something safe, just do that. And then my heart's like, keep going for filmmaking, you know, and there was a lot of hard times.
Yeah.
With that, especially a year and a half of not making any money. And my parents started to get on my case. They're like, all right, you've been here long enough. You tried this out. Maybe it's time for you to, you know, do something else. My dad was, every time people would come over that like worked in a job that was around my age, he'd say, oh, my son is looking for a job kind of thing. So
it's kind of like
just like trying to get me out. He's like, all right.
Did you, I mean, yeah, I'm guessing a lot of word of mouth helped you out, right? You met people maybe through your family's businesses and acquaintances from college that kind of connected you with companies and stuff like that needed video work?
Honestly, not so much.
No?
I know a lot of people say word of mouth.
Yeah.
And like I said, everybody's story is a little bit different. But what I kept doing is I invested in myself. Anytime I made money, I put it 100% back, which, you know, again, I was lucky I was able to do that. Not everybody could do that. I put it 100% back into my business, marketing, advertising. And when I mean marketing, I'm not saying like putting Facebook ads out. What I would do is I'd take those experiences and I realized early off that I was like, oh, I can backtrack a little bit. Sorry.
Yeah, no,
so
I'd love to hear
when
about it.
When I was younger, I fell off a cliff and almost died. And I developed PTSD from it when I was in sixth grade. And so I had to drop out of school and I wasn't able to like do a lot of normal, even through high school, like I couldn't leave my house a lot without having severe anxiety attacks from it. Wow. And so even I didn't even think I was going to go to college. Like there was a lot of like, you know, so that was like the other part of my life. And by the time like I still deal with it today, but where I conquered it, you know, I decided I was like, I want to live my life to the fullest. Like I don't want to live, I want to experience things. So I created a bucket list at a very young age. And I realized not only is filmmaking my bucket list and wanting to do that, but I can take film and I can do trades with people for things that I want to do on my bucket list. And so I started doing that. And I started off with riding riding bulls with a professional bull rider. Okay. So I filmed for him, got to do that. I did Formula 3 racing at Laguna Seca and filmed for Alan Berg and got to do that. Okay. I did rally racing up in Seattle at Dirtfish and made videos for all these people. And I didn't realize at the time that even though that I was spending money to get there, I wasn't spending money on these experiences, which A, was crossing something off my bucket list that I never get to experience. But B, people thought like I was doing like insane work for these huge companies thinking I was getting paid because, you know, obviously like I'm not like, this is all for free, right? So I'm making marketing videos for these bigger companies doing these extreme things. And people started seeing this and I'd be posting them on Facebook, you know, in different groups and whatever. And people thought like my portfolio just grew exponentially because I really put myself out there. And pretty much the whole free to fee kind of aspect, I would do these things pretty much for trade, right? And in turn, I'd always get a job out of it because people would see that and they're like, wow, this guy's doing some serious stuff. Like, oh, he's filming like bull riding, he's filming race cars, like he's doing this, he's traveling the world. And like, and only like maybe 2 or 3 people knew because I never tried to like make a face for myself on social media or anything like that. I wasn't like, oh yeah, so I'm going out to do this free thing. Like, so I'd just be posting the work and people would think, wow, man, this guy's made it kind of thing. And I'm like, all right, even though, and I was still learning, like I still think I'm learning a lot. So, but it built my portfolio. I got to make amazing experiences. And it also was just amazing marketing because people would see that and either they would hire me for something again or I would other people would see that and they're like, oh, we need to hire this guy, right? Wow. So yeah.
When did kind of that switch happen though? When did you go from kind of the portfolio gaining, you know, the free, you're traveling, you're doing your bucket list? When did the switch kind of happen? Did people start contacting you for work?
Yeah, so people started contacting me. I've built like a website, important. If you're going to want to get work, get a website. Yeah. Everybody, like Wix or Squarespace or whatever.
I'm using Wix.
Yeah, I use Wix too. That's not a sponsor. I just,
no sponsors.
I mean, that's who I use, so I don't know. It works well for me. or even like, you know, a demo reel if that's all you like you can afford, because but you can do Wix for free. It just it has their banner and you have a weird URL.
You get like
but,
one
hey,
page, right?
Start,
or something like that.
Start somewhere, right? And so I did that, and slowly but surely started learning like the whole business side of it and catching up. And because my whole thing is like, I don't want to look like this young kid that doesn't know what he's doing. And I think a lot of people are like that at first, and you have to slowly start understanding that and taking and be like, okay, I need to improve this, or like the way that I send out my emails or format my emails, or who I'm reaching out to. And so, I mean, it wasn't like a lot of work or steady work at first. I started doing that, and people would notice that, and I'd start getting money. And then I started doing weddings as well, because weddings is a very good, you know, supplementation of your income. But as I was growing the marketing side, because that's something that I'm more interested in than doing the weddings personally. I mean, I still do weddings here and there.
Me too.
But I really like doing, you know, like I got into it for a reason. I chased it because it's my passion, and I like doing outdoorsy, outdoor stuff. I like doing, you know, extreme sports. I just finished filming a pilot series for a TV show of motorcycle riding in Ireland, where I directed, shot, edited, that whole situation.
How'd you get into something like that? Is that
bucket list? That was my bucket list at first. So
really?
I rode dirt bikes my whole life. I didn't own any until I was older, but I've seen how beautiful Ireland is, and I love traveling. And so I reached out to a motorcycle tourism company out there, and I said, hey, me and my brother would love to come out here. We want to ride motorcycles, and it was on my bucket list to circumnavigate Ireland on a motorcycle. And they said that would be awesome. We get asked a lot, but we love your work. And people really like that Santa Cruz video. And that's honestly what got my foot in the door, by showing that to people. Nice. And since it had a good amount of views, it
works.
And so it worked, right? And so me and my brother went out there and we filmed it. They loved that. 6 months later, I get a call from them. They're like, hey, we want to fund our own pilot or series to try to get it picked up. Would you want to direct it? We really loved your work. And I was like, all right, these are my prices. This is what it would cost. This is who I need to bring in, blah, blah, blah. And so, I mean, it's just things like that, like you would never expect. And I mean, yeah, I paid for my way. The first time I paid for my way out there, obviously, but I didn't pay for the bikes, rentals, and my brother got to go do the experience with me, which was really cool. And honestly, still one of the best trips that I've ever done. And even filming the TV show was one of the best trips I've ever done. Like, you're in such a beautiful country, and getting to spend time, and the crew that we had was awesome. And when we'd work hard, and then when we had our time off, we'd go out and drink some Guinness, which is really nice. That's awesome. Guinness is really good, and the food in Ireland's amazing.
I bet Guinness there tastes better too. Like
1,000 times. I wouldn't drink Guinness here. It's trash. Sorry, Guinness, but it just doesn't taste the same. It's
Guinness
so
U.S.
good.
distribution, not good. But
yeah, it's
Ireland,
so good. I don't know how to explain it, but they use nitrogen to fill in the lines, and what they try to do here is they put these like nitrogen capsules to kind of, and it just doesn't. It's so creamy, and I think I like stouts because I love coffee. As you can see, I'm drinking it right now at 1:30.
Yeah.
And so it's very similar, I guess. I don't know.
My wife works at Starbucks, so I'm like, I get coffee all the time from her, so that really helps me out. My wife's from Spain, actually, so I've never been to Europe.
Really?
We were supposed to go like right now, but all this COVID stuff kind of stopped us.
Yeah.
But I'm really excited to go over to see Europe and all that. I was in the Navy for 6 years, so I traveled Asia. I did all of Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore, Thailand, Philippines. I did that whole like Asia area in Japan.
Yeah. I love Thailand. We actually just right when this COVID thing happened, we just got back from Vietnam. That's where it was on my bucket list to go to the world's largest cave. So we made that happen.
Nice.
Made a short film about it for fun.
Right.
But I mean, in the end, it's just the experience, really.
Yeah.
That's honestly, and probably not the best advice. Everybody wants the recipe for success, and I feel like I'm probably the worst person to give it.
But I mean, it's kind of being yourself. You found something about yourself with that bucket list that helped motivate your career in a way, right?
Yeah.
It just kind of fed each other.
It's funny too, because like I feel like if people looked at my Instagram now, they'd be like, "Wait, what? That's what he does?" Which is like completely different. Yeah,
No.
because you have to scroll down a little bit. But I mean, I started getting into product videos 4 months ago.
Yeah, I want to ask about that because that's I love the product videos. That's
yeah.
I do commercial work. So one of my big things, you're saying how you started out. We're kind of started out at the same time. I started about 3 years ago making money with filmmaking. But about 2 years ago, my buddy worked for an energy company, Silicon Valley Clean Energy, which is the community choice aggregate for Santa Clara County. I'm their videographer, and I met their marketing manager, and they hired me on a contract, and that's what's kind of fed me for the last 2 years.
That's awesome.
I do corporate videos with them. Now I'm venturing into other things. I'm trying to get more customers, expand, but I really love the product videography. That's like something that really it's just clean, and
that's why I got into it, because I was trying to look for a new avenue before the whole COVID thing. I liked marketing videos, and I was working my way out of weddings because I was building up enough of my marketing portfolio.
Right.
Because the weddings was a good amount of my income, but I started building up my marketing enough. Like it took that long just to have enough connections,
Right.
over these 3 years. But I was like, well, everybody, here's like the best tip of advice I can give for everybody. I don't know why, not everybody, a lot of people think that you need to be getting paid to do work. And I feel like that's probably the worst advice. I mean, obviously know what you're worth and don't get cheated by people.
Right.
But at the same time, nobody's going to hire you to do a product video if you've never done a product video before.
Right.
I mean, maybe, but they really shouldn't, because even though
it's
that
your
you're a
friend's
filmmaker,
company or something,
Yeah, yeah.
it's like a mom and pop shop, something that maybe they've seen
Yeah.
other work you've done, they can trust you. But
Exactly. And so my whole thing is whenever I've had downtime or I don't have a client, I make work for myself.
Okay.
I'll make films, I'll make my own personal projects, and I get hired off those too. I made one about San Francisco with an astronaut running around, and I got hired and I got jobs off of that.
That
So
was
whenever I
interesting.
don't have work, always create work for yourself, because
Okay.
people just sit around and they're like, well, I'm not getting hired for anything. I'm like, go out and create something for yourself. You're not getting paid for that, but at least it's building up your portfolio. You get to experiment more around. You don't have clients breathing down your neck of like,
Right.
oh, this is how it has to be. Get as wild as you want. Learn new things, push yourself, try new angles, try different artistic styles, and create, and just keep building your portfolio. Because if you don't have anything else to do, build your portfolio, create new things. Because I've learned more on my personal shoots than I've done for clients, and it's almost like you look at it like being like an athlete and that you're practicing for the big game.
Right.
If you're just going to sit around and wait to get hired and then the big game comes and like shit goes wrong on set, you were not training in that meantime, right? I like to train and have all my mistakes happen. Hopefully, most of my mistakes happen
On your own.
On my own,
Right.
where there's nobody, there's no consequences, right? And that's where I've learned the most. I personally believe that I've learned the most from like all my work and how I've grown so much of doing like 3 years of my work. And it was the same thing with marketing. With product videos, is that I didn't have any in my portfolio, but I just like you, there's something about product videos that I think that you can just be super creative. And especially like, for example, I think it started with, I would see perfume videos like in airports, and was thinking, I want to do that kind of stuff.
Right.
Not with the models per se, but I was like, oh, how do they do those really cool shots with like the water dripping and like the beautiful lighting, and where they can be pretty much just as weird and artistic as you want, especially in perfume ads. Like they get weird in those. And that's why I like filming. I like being creative. That's like the main thing that I love about it, is that you can take just a concept in your head and then make it into whatever you want. And so that's why I think I kind of flourished a lot in product videos. And so I just started making my own. I made, before my first one that I actually like tutorial that I put, I think I made 2 or 3 product videos.
Okay.
All garbage, but I was learning as much as I could.
Right.
I was looking up, there was no tutorials for product video. I mean, there was, but I couldn't find any. on YouTube, you know, the filmmaking school, international filmmaking school
of YouTube,
but
we all have gone now.
And so there was no product video tutorials. There's product photography tutorials, and I was like, screw it, I'm just gonna learn this and then try to apply that into filmmaking. And so I was doing that. I was learning things on different courses as much as I could and trying to take the knowledge that I had already from filmmaking.
Right.
And I was like, all right, let's make some videos. And so after I made one that I was like, this is actually not that bad, let's remake it, and now I'm going to do a tutorial about it. And because there wasn't any out there, and I didn't want everybody else to suffer going through like 15 different tutorials of product photography, which is not really the same, you know, but kind of similar in an extent. So that's kind of where I posted my first video, and that was right before COVID happened. And then I kind of just started doubling down on that because it's like, well, that was not that great. I need to do better.
I agree.
And
that's
so
what it is. It's finding that next one to make it better. Yeah.
Yeah. And then my mind just started running because I always loved the idea of inventing stuff, but I was never smart enough to be like an engineer or anything like that.
But you made some really cool things with the Cyclone, with your drills and all that. I saw the last one with the funnel and all that.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know anything about math or anything like that, but I'm like, okay, if I can take this stick and glue it onto this and take a drill, like, I can get this spinning, I can definitely remove that in post. Right. And that's kind of where that all came from, is that I've always loved building stuff, but my idea of building is duct tape and just going for it kind of thing. Like, that will hold. I'm
gonna try it this weekend. I'm gonna do the drill thing. Okay, so a little side note. I made the Doritos commercial off of kind of like watching your tutorials and other people's, and I was making that for myself. Like you said, I just wanted to make some work for myself, and I wanted to do a product video because I never done one. And then after I made it, I realized that Doritos had a summer film challenge. I submitted it, and I won $2,000. I was like, that was awesome.
That's so cool. I know you told me that, and I was so stoked because I love hearing stories like that. I've had a few people reach out to me, and they're like, thank you so much for your product video tutorials. It's gotten me jobs, and now like I'm doing that, and I got out of doing real estate or doing this, which I didn't really like that much. And I was like, I mean, you did it. Like, I'm just here kind of just saying things, I guess, and like what works for me. I don't know. Like, I've never looked at myself and be like, oh, I'm the expert that knows everything. And people now are like telling me, like, yeah, you're like product video king. I'm like, no. Like,
dude, you're doing a great, dude. Your content's amazing.
I'm like, I have no clue what I'm doing. I'm just like, I hope this works half the time. And I mean, I love it. I love doing it.
Are you shooting? Okay, so side note, I'm gonna do a White Claw commercial this weekend. That's my plan. I decided, like, I've been looking at their Instagram, kind of like their style, and I'm kind of mimicking that, and then I'm gonna kind of do some things. Do you shoot? I shoot with an A7 III. That's kind of like my camera. Log wise, I haven't messed with log too much. I've always been everything else. I haven't stepped into log yet, and I think that's my main thing I need to get into next. Do you do most product videos in like an ungraded? And then grade later?
So it depends. It really depends. So like my Elmhurst milk video, I did that. That was half in RAW and half in just Canon's proprietary whatever the 1DX is. It's not log. Okay. I mean, you can shoot in RAW, but the files are just ridiculous to work with. I shot one whole video that I did for a client in RAW with the new one, and even the Premiere right now doesn't even accept the RAW, so I had to get like the beta Premiere, and then I had to put them all in proxies, which took 2 days to turn into proxies, and it was over, I think it was over
600
4 terabytes of footage. Gosh. And I said, screw this, I'm not doing like that kind of RAW anymore. It's just not worth it. And I see like people coming out with like the 8K RAW coming out on the R5. I'm like, good luck with that. Like my computer is pretty souped up, and I was chugging along on.
I mean, I'd love to get some 4K slow-mo. That's something that would be really cool, I think.
Oh yeah, that's what I use my Ursa for primarily now, is because clients have asked, actually not for 4K, because some of them want like really slow. You can do 4K 120.
Oh wow!
But you can do 1080 300 frames.
Wow.
But it's not the greatest 1080 because it's a 35 millimeter sensor, right?
Right. So
that's already pretty. That's pretty small. But then it's cropped in for the 300 frames at 1080. So like your sensor size is probably like this big.
Micro Four Thirds, if that.
Yeah. And so I'm running a lot of grain on those when I'm doing those, and I have to light them pretty well. So like I'm denoising it as much as I can, you
and
know,
sharpening it, I'm guessing too.
Yeah, and I mean, what's beautiful about, and this sounds terrible, is what's beautiful about technology at the same time is that most everybody's watching these things on cell phones, so it's not, you know, in the end, like it doesn't really matter, and it comes back again and again. Like people like, what, like, how do I get like this kind of camera? Like I only have a cell phone. I'm like, honestly, I've seen people make product videos with their cell phones that look better than the stuff that I'm shooting. So it doesn't matter. Like just start shooting. There's no reason not to, you know, I mean, I hear like so many different excuses from people and I'm like, there's no reason not to, just start. They're like, I don't have lights. I'm like, put it next to a window. Like you're gonna, I mean, you have to start we all started somewhere. I started with no gear. Now I have way too much gear. And people think the answer is buying expensive equipment is going to solve it. I cannot tell you, and I hope people can learn from this, is like, I cannot tell you how many times I've bought something that's really expensive because I'm like, oh, this is going to change the game. End up not using it because it's so complicated and takes so much time to set up that really for that minute difference that there is no reason for me to have it. And I just go back to using my original setup of stuff, you know, because sometimes like the more expensive things are, the more they'll break down, A, and B, just the more complicated, and C, what people don't realize is you're going to buy that really expensive camera, everything else is going to have to be souped up. Like you're going to have to get the right kind of gimbal that's going to hold it. Well, I mean, I know Zion or Zion.
Yeah, Zune, I think is what,
Zune.
or something like that.
They have the Crane 3 now that can pretty much hold any camera, which is pretty cool. Which I don't know how people are rocking like with the big camera just hold. Yeah. Right. But yeah, you have to think about all those things. Like everything has to be upgraded when you upgrade that camera. And sometimes, honestly, like I try to keep my setups as simple as possible, just because like all of my closets are full with gear, and people like anybody, and I was that person too, making excuses when I'd see people. I'm like, oh, well, their videos look really nice. They have all that equipment. I'm like, no, because I see people make it. Like I said again, I see people with iPhones making beautiful like footage or product videos or even marketing videos. You know, it's really how you use it and like learning your gear, because it's kind of like this percentage of when you get a new camera, like how much can you really optimize out of it, like your skill wise. And it takes, I believe it at least takes like a good year of getting to know that camera, what its capabilities are, what you can use it in, kind of thing. Because I see people swapping out cameras I'm like, you haven't, like you need to get experience on that, you know. It's crazy. And like I guess the Blackmagic is just as expensive as my 1DX, but I bought that and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have a cinema camera, everything's gonna change. That thing I barely use comparatively to my 1DX Mark II. And like money, for the amount of money that it's cost and how complicated it is, people always ask me like, wow, why don't you use that more? I'm like, well, the 1DX Mark II and Mark III now has amazing autofocus, so I don't have to pull focus, even though that I bought all that stuff for pulling focus. I don't have to have a huge like setup. I don't have to buy a better tripod so it can support it. I don't have to buy a better gimbal, which I did all that, but it just takes hours upon hours just to set up. And I'm like, I just can whip out my 1DX Mark II, which still is beautiful for how, I don't even know how old that camera is now.
4 or 5 years now, right? I think.
Yeah, 5 years, I think.
Yeah.
And still, like, people, when I would film with that back in the day, when I filmed with that, people would be like, are you shooting on a red and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, 1DX Mark II. Just my one. Yeah. And there's no RAW on that, and it worked great. I mean, I try to stay at 4K just because I personally believe that is what the standard is going to be. Right. So that does limit me a little bit with how slow I can shoot on it, obviously, because you can only go 4K 60. But most of the time, I'm not really shooting in slow-mo for a lot of my product videos. Most of the like things that I have, like the turntable and all that stuff, turns slow enough. And I'm not doing a lot of the stuff like what Chris TV does, where he does like, you know, phantom slow motion of things hitting. Like it's not as much, like that's not my focus. I use the gear that I have and I tailor my videos around the gear that I have. Right. You know,
we'd love to be able to get that eventually, but I think just work around what the gear you have right now. Well, we're getting closer to the end. I wanted to pick your brain about YouTube. How's that going? Because that's kind of blown up for you here in the last little bit, right? I mean, besides you had the Santa Cruz video, but you said how's that going?
It was good. Honestly, that Santa Cruz video is like my highest viewed video for 3 years until I started doing these product videos. I wasn't posting on YouTube that much though, because it is very hard to build a following on YouTube.
Yeah.
But honestly, I think it's like I don't know how to explain this, but I guess if like you want to be an influencer for filmmaking, I think it's probably like the best one where you're going to get the most return,
Right.
if you have a following comparatively to Instagram and Facebook. And that's just my personal opinion.
They all kind of feed off each other. Yeah.
I'm not writing a book about this or anything like that. Just from what
how
I've noticed. Yeah. No.
How to do YouTube by Austen Paul.
No. There's people that are way more successful at that than me. I'm just, I'm learning it as I go. Like anything, I kind of take that mindset is just kind of learn and readjust. If something's not working, just readjust and kind of focus on something else. I didn't think I was going to be doing product videos when I got into filmmaking, but I also didn't think I was going to be spending 80% of my time on a computer when I was doing filmmaking,
right?
Which is where the general amount of your work is.
Right.
But it's going well. I mean, I'm still creating. I'm trying to release stuff at least once a week if I can. Yeah, but
do you have a backlog? Is that kind of what it is too? Because you're saying that you don't.
Nope.
I know the feeling. I'm filming this right now. It's gonna come out on Monday. I'm filming that White Claw commercial this weekend. That'll come out next Thursday.
Yeah, well, I had like a backlog for maybe like a week, and then I got antsy and started releasing like 3 videos in a week once, and so
I remember that.
I screwed myself on that one very fast, and now I've been just so busy with client work that I haven't really got to do a lot of creative stuff lately. But like I said, with my clients, I do release their work as well because I have that in my contract, but it's a little bit slower of a process because they have a whole marketing strategy, so I have to wait until they do it. And I also like to ask for approval anyways, because it's not really good to burn a bridge with a client that you're working with.
Absolutely.
Even though that it's in my contract, I ask for their approval on top of that, because not everybody reads contracts that closely, first off. So,
yeah.
And second off, like if they don't want it, like why would I put it out there,
Right.
But I have a plethora of ideas. They're all on my whiteboard and they're ready to go. It's just trying to find the time is insane. And like I said, I mean, even responding to people like takes up a good amount of your time as well. Like it's almost like a full-time job just responding to messaging people all the time. And
well, I don't know that yet. I'd love to be there one day.
Yeah, it has its perks. I mean, it's weird being from one side, and I'm sure you've heard this from a lot of people that I guess you could say have made it or whatever. And I don't by any means like woohoo, like like I'm like famous or anything like that. I don't think I have like that. I mean, I'm stoked that people like my work and that people know who I am. That's a good
head to have on your shoulders.
Yeah.
And I think that's what also makes people want to watch someone's content when they have that type of that personality like that.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like my whole philosophy is because I mean, I see a lot of YouTubers and like they do put a lot of effort into like how they shoot like their tutorial. Like, and I'm not saying I don't put a lot of effort, but like I don't light myself up, as you can see. It's kind of just I'm like, here it is. Like this is what you get. Like I'm not gonna write out a script or anything. I'll tell you guys as I'm going, because most of the time this is for clients, right? Yeah, and it is a lot of it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work not only to do the client's video, but to be like, all right, now I'm gonna take a lot of time to do these tutorials as well. And so I just figured I'm gonna give people the information, and if they like my personality, whatever. I know I'm kind of weird, but I wasn't planning on being in front of the camera or whatever. So I was like, I'll just go with it, and if people like it,
you put the dings in there. The dings they're amazing.
So the whole story with that is that I don't like being in front of the camera, and I was like, are we done with like that's like how it like started with it? And I was like, cool, like to my girlfriend, and it kind of reminds me of like those really cheesy 80s toy commercials.
Just gotta suck it a little bit.
Oh right, like that. So I was like, well, this is really awkward, so I'm just gonna start doing that. And then I was gonna stop doing it, but then people started commenting and they're like, I really dislike those, and I was like, okay, well, I'm definitely gonna do them now, because I like. And then people like, then I got like backlash from people like, you're not respecting your fans, and I'm like, what? I'm like,
really, it's whatever I want to do.
I'm like, you don't have to watch it if you want. It's not to insult people, but like if it's gonna annoy people, like something that's like simple and silly, like it kind of, I don't know, maybe I get a little bit of like,
It's like a shark with blood in the water a little bit, right?
Like I'm like, okay, well now I have to do this, like especially because and now I made a shirt like
I saw that.
Yeah, and we're gonna make smaller. It's gonna be like smaller logo, and I'm gonna start like selling those to people that want them and stuff like that. You know. So I don't know, just for fun. People have also asked for my hat, and I'm like, I didn't make this hat. My mom made it for me. So.
Yeah. How'd you get the AP? Where did you write that? How you sign your name or?
Oh no, my handwriting is
me
terrible.
Too. I saw people have those fancy like art signatures, and I'm like on their logos, and I'm like,
yeah. I you know what I think? I think half the time those are like just somebody designs those because there's no way that somebody's signature is that nice.
Yeah.
I know I have one friend that actually has really nice signatures, and he like takes pride in it. I look like I'm in second grade writing it, and people are like, what the hell does that say? I type everything to anybody. I don't even know my own handwriting. And so my signature is terrible. So bad. No, this is actually a good friend of mine. He's a graphic designer, and he made my logo. I made my first one. It was terrible. And I was like, hey, can you make me a new logo? And he did. So this is what it is, and this is what it's going to stay as because I don't need to like keep changing. I know a lot of people like change it and rebrand and stuff. I'm like, this is fine. It's good. I mean, it's about your content. It's not, in the end, it's not going to be about this. People are not going to hire me because of my logo. I just needed something that I didn't make because I'm not a graphic designer at all. When clients are like, oh, can you put like text and like make it look good? I'm like, ooh, no, like have your graphic designer send me over whatever text they want to use. I don't make me do that.
My little blue Make Media circle, I paid for that. I bought it at like one of those little, I just found a place that did graphic design things. Yeah, I didn't make it myself. It's not my
smart.
thing.
I took a few graphic design classes in college, and they were telling me how, and there's some guys that are super into graphic design, and they're telling me that there's classes specifically on one type of font, like on Helvetica itself, and like the weight of fonts and stuff. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, typography's already like I'm like, yeah, this kind of looks good. I'm like, I have no clue. I mean, it's so hard because I mean, when people are good at graphic design, you can just tell with like the font that they're using, everything, or like and how they place it, and it just looks good. And then I do it, and it just looks like a train wreck. So. Yeah, I stay away from that side of things. That's not my specialty whatsoever.
All right, Austin. Thank you very much for being on my podcast. We're coming here to an end. Everyone that's watching this video, I'm going to tag his information in the bio. You don't need it because you probably came from his stuff anyways. Thank you very much, Austin. And this has been another Make Media podcast, and hopefully we'll talk to Austin again in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Wait, stop. Look, there's more things that you can still do. Look, if you minimize whatever video you're currently watching of mine and you scroll down a little bit, there's going to be this red subscribe button. You know what you do? You click it. Check this out. Ready? Watch. It's crazy. It goes from red to gray. Right? Blew my mind. I want you to check to see if yours goes from red to gray. And I want you to leave a comment down below if it did. And that's about it. Now you're at the end of the video. Go on ahead and watch something else now.